today we're going to start our exam review, and we could also start just with a few slides and concepts that we didn't quite have a chance to get to last class. And we will also have some Kahoots to look at. So there is a lot of material to help you review and prepare for the exam. If I go on modules and then down here, I'm looking at the final exam review link. When I click on it, I come to this page. So it says the exam will be held on Thursday, December 21st from 10:30 to 12:30 right here. Attendance is mandatory. If you have a good reason why you can't attend, then email me and we'll see what we can do. There are 50 questions on the exam, combination of multiple choice and true false. The questions will be drawn from chapters 8 through 13 of the textbook. With minor changes, questions will be repeated from the quiz that we took in week 11, which covered chapters 8 till 10, and from the Kahoots that we have played each week. So that makes about 70 questions in total that you have seen, and the exam will contain 50 of them. The best way to prepare for the exam is to review the PowerPoint presentations in class, and they're linked in the module section, and review the questions and answers on the Kahoots that we played in class every Thursday. See below for instructions on how to review the Kahoots. If you don't have a device that will help you use the Kahoots, contact me and we will make alternative arrangements. So the Kahoots will close on December 20th, the day before the exam. So if you're planning on using them to review, use them before then. Okay? So there's a link to the instructions about the Kahoots, and here are the pins to enter in to play the Kahoots on your mobile device only. I don't think they'll work on a laptop. JP, maybe they will.
So they'll close like at midnight on the 21st.
Just waiting for that question. I don't know. So use them before 12:20.
Okay.
Thank you. So here are the pin numbers. So plug those pin numbers in and use them. Okay. For those of you who cannot access the Kahoots, please email me for alternatives. On December 12th, our scheduled class time will be devoted to a live stream review. That's today. And I'm thinking I'll probably do it again next class. So we'll see. Here is a list of topics culled from everything we've done. So chapter 8, well, I won't read all of these out, but there they are, okay? Chapters 8 through 13. So this is a way of coming at the exam through a list of topics, which is what I usually give in all my classes. And you have the added advantage of the Kahoots, which give you the questions. So, questions about this, apart from when do the Kahoots actually go offline? I had a lot of trouble actually putting them online, so we'll see. Yes?
What time is it again?
The exam is, we meet,
Is it 10:30 to?
it's 10:30 to 12:30 p.m. 10:30 to 12:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 21st.
Someone has a 6 a.m. Wow.
Indeed. But those are for classes that usually meet early anyway, for people who want to get their studies out of the way and then go to work. By the way, on the module, there's a documentary, Frontline documentary. The online class is watching that this week. We may have a chance to look at it a little bit next class, but there's no assignment associated with it, just in case you wanted to know about that. Righto, let's see if there's any questions in chat. I don't think so. Okay, next up. Final exam review. So I promised that we would take a look in the PowerPoints for a few things that we didn't have a chance to look at, and then we can do a Kahoot on that. So that's where we left off with last class. I think we were talking about a very successful or well-regarded social effects research project by George Gerbner, who was at Stanford before he retired, commonly known as the mean world syndrome, which you could remember by thinking the more that people watch television, the more they come away with the idea that the world is more dangerous than statistics, actual statistics would suggest. So the mean world syndrome is one specific outcome of what Gerbner sees as what he calls cultivation theory. That media enters in a subtle but pervasive way into our understanding of what reality is. We're all hopefully pretty good at distinguishing between what's fiction and what's reality when confronted on a case-by-case basis. But through a generalized exposure to media, whether it's fictional media or news media, all of them cultivate a shared worldview. And that operates sometimes outside of our ability to parse what is true, what is not true, and instead gives us a background perception of things being dangerous, the world being a mean world. So other effects could come out of cultivation as well. It's largely, it could promote prejudiced views of other people, for instance, based on the prevalence of, ethnic types presented as villains over and over and over again. One might look at the TV show and say, well, I know that's just a drama, it's not really true, but on the basis of it, seeing over and over again in many, on television all over the place, news or fiction, you might come away with a heightened sense of those people being dangerous. So cultivation theory could apply to many different things. But the mean world syndrome, as we saw, has to do specifically with how dangerous the world is, and there's a correlation. The more TV you watch, the more you think the world is dangerous. That's it. Research done on multitasking and the effects of video games. No questions on this on the exam. However, video game violence has been a continual media researchers and regulators. As we said at the end of last class, we haven't been able to demonstrate a significant causal effect between watching video games and violent behavior. There is, however, a small positive effect in that people who may have more aggressive personality types may be drawn to playing video games. Whether video games caused that or whether simply their personality type led them to enjoy video games more, we can't really say. So there's a correlation, in other words, the two fit together somehow, but without necessarily causality, meaning that maybe playing the games doesn't cause the aggressiveness, it simply appeals to people who are already aggressive. So that is the most that research has been able to show. Video games, like all of our devices, we're back to addiction. I remember on the first day, practically, we were talking about addiction, right, of mobile devices. And so because they're so interactive and designed to make people want to play them, they may be addictive. There are, I think some large game design companies really have a playbook as to how to, get people into the 5th level and then, offer them something else, pay us, So, yeah. So, effects of the internet addiction. I had never heard of this before. Nomophobia, no mobile phone phobia. So
who made that up?
I have no idea. feeling fearful because you've forgotten your phone somewhere. That happens to me too, because I think I've just lost $600 or something. What? But I think it goes beyond that.
That means you got the iPhone 6.
There you go. That's right. If I said 1,000, that would be the iPhone 10, right? You can figure that
A good example is it happened to me earlier. I couldn't find it in my purse.
out.
And I was freaking out because
Yeah.
I have so much stuff in my purse.
Yeah.
And I couldn't
Yeah.
find it. That's why a good example is that's why my it's blue, so I can find it easier.
Because you don't have much
So
stuff
bright.
that's that color.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a good example.
It is a good idea. Yeah. And then some people have really big phones, which are harder to misplace.
I just had a panic about I couldn't find my iPad. It was all over my room.
Okay. At least a phone you can call it. Like, how do you find it?
What if it's on vibrate?
Yeah. You hear it shaking maybe, but an iPad's harder to find. A misplaced iPad. Yeah. Okay. Again, no questions as from what I can see here. No questions on this on the exam. Children and young adults may be susceptible to media effects, whether positive or negative. So this is why the FTC, so not the FCC, not the Federal Communications Commission, but the Federal Trade Commission has placed restrictions on how much advertising could be shown on like Saturday morning kids prime time, and also on the way you market foods to children as well.
I got last night. I was watching before the Warrior game came on, and there was a. I'd never seen the place before. It was kind of like a Bass Pro Shop style, outdoors. And then right at the end of the commercial, it was there like a sale on long-range rifle and a handgun. I think that was the first time I'd ever seen an advertised gun commercial.
Yeah.
I was
Was
like,
this broadcast?
It was ESPN,
Okay.
which is even
Never.
So it's
funnier
cable.
to me. I was like,
Yeah.
it was cable, but I just felt like, a lot of people have access to it. And I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've
Yeah,
ever seen something.
it's been a long time since I've watched, but I don't remember ever seeing firearms.
Like gun ads, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Different.
I should look that up.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there's restrictions about that.
I didn't either. I thought you would say
Tobacco and alcohol, yes. Jonathan?
Yeah,
you
so
know?
there's not for gun sales. I mean, if you were to look at, was it the Rural Network or whatever it's called? They show a lot of Bonanza and whatnot
Uh-huh.
for older people. But yeah, they'll show, the latest farming equipment to hunting equipment, and all this stuff. So it's all over the place. So
That'd
you're
be a
not-
wonderful channel to look at for one of our assigned topics.
like
you
that
know, it's like
outdoors, right? The outdoors channel.
such a clear correlation between westerns and selling guns or
Yeah, and they still got a lot of the 70s and 80s improv shows and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay.
My grandma watched
The
it.
older you get, the more you want guns. I don't know. Is there a correlation there? That's not a serious bit of research there.
Not at all.
That's a hypothesis. Yeah. Okay, now this one's important. There is a question on this one in the exam about agenda setting. So this is the idea that news media may not have, the magic bullet effect of programming us with some kind of information that we just immediately believe. But on a more subtle level, professional news media exercise what they call the gatekeeping function, which is, in the old days of mass media, it was hard to get access to being a broadcaster. And so the major institutions like your, evening network news or something really determined a lot of what people were talking about, what they considered news to be. And so a theory was developed about that called the gatekeeping theory, that these media professionals decided not so much what we'd think, but rather what we would think about. So they'd set us, an agenda of things that were important that we should, be thinking about. And, clearly that function has been weakened somewhat by all of the different channels through which people get news now. So, and also, competing sort of ideological news services with a very different agenda in mind, right? And so I think that's still a very pertinent concept and theory to think about. So on the one hand, it says here on the slide, the effect is increased by media consolidation. Consolidation meaning, the concentration of ownership in one set of hands. But we'd have to also argue what we just did, which is that with your Breitbarts and your InfoWars and web news channels, that there are different agendas out there, even if the mass media, the remnants of them, are owned by fewer and fewer people. Did anybody catch the news that News Corp, the Murdochs, are selling the sort of entertainment side of Fox, and they're going to keep the television, especially the cable news network, Fox News, but they're selling the movie production and distribution, and the movie production studio also does a lot of television shows. They're selling that to Disney.
So Fox still gets to keep The Simpsons.
Oh, 20th century.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't look. Yeah, but so the major thing is they're retaining sort of the propaganda arm of the whole operation and selling the more entertainment side to Disney, which is a great example of consolidation. As Disney is so powerful at snapping up more stuff.
So smart.
Yeah.
They'll make a bunch of money because everybody will pay to watch a new X-Men and a new Fantastic Four.
So there's no more. What's going to happen with the Alien movies and now and everything? Man, that sucks.
I don't know. I mean, I guess they'll.
I can't imagine Disney doing that.
Yeah, I think what really sucks is if you're a creative person and you have fewer and fewer places to go to sell. We're talking about the 150 or 300 few who can actually compete for that type of business. But it still means that you're going to one studio to sell your stuff, and they own everything, which is never a good situation for a worker anyway. Yeah, so you could remember the agenda setting function of the news, the hypothesis of this theory. So the media don't tell us what to think. That would be the magic bullet. But they do tell us what to think about. So they raise up, the endless conversation about Donald Trump, which occupies everybody, is set by the media. That's what you see. That's what they present to you, and that's what people wind up talking about. Oh, did you see the latest? And that kind of thing. So it's really very relevant, but also very interesting because the mass media no longer controls the dialogue entirely. Okay, and here's another theory. It's important. There is a question on the exam about this one. So this is a different way of looking at how people use media. If the magic bullet posited, a strong effect where the media had the ability to put an idea into your head, this kind of turns the tables and it talks about how active audiences are in terms of seeking out media and the various uses that they have for it. So that's why it's called uses and gratifications. The audience uses media for particular reasons, and it gets gratified. In other words, it gets benefits out of using media. So it's kind of a different idea than the magic bullet puts the control in the media's hands. Uses and gratifications puts the control in the audience's hands. They seek out certain things. So they freely choose media content. They have a purpose in mind. So that may be to learn about things. It may be to entertain themselves. And then there are kind of subcategories in there, for mood control. If you seek out, some kinds of music, it makes you feel more alive, makes you feel better, helps you get through your day. Relaxation, sleeping. So stress reduction would be another one. In fact, I've seen upwards of 100 different uses listed in this type of theory, which of course we don't have to go into in any detail here. But they've broken it down in a very extensive way, just talking about what the different needs that audiences have, for media. So two concepts that come out of this are TV viewing can be instrumental, so you go to watch TV for a reason because you need something from it, or it can be ritualistic, which is more the case when you sit down and, okay, Thursday nights we keep it free because we always sit down and watch, some comedy or something like that. So it's ritualistic when you kind of have an appointment with your media without really getting anything, having a strong desire to get something out of it. So maybe instrumental might be, searching for something on the internet, versus ritualistic would be, every Thursday you sit down and watch this show or something like that. They both satisfy needs of the audience. So, okay, this is a gratification. So curbing harmful content and behavior. So this brings us into the textbook discussion of powerful media. And here, the FCC has built on its early mandate to police content that goes out over the airwaves, created definitions and fines and punishments for indecency, obscenity, profanity. They're dealt with somewhat differently. You're not allowed to broadcast anything that's obscene at any time. And obscenity would be showing either sex acts or defecation. So you can't show people having sex. You can't show people pooping at any time. And there's a more extensive definition on the FCC website. However, indecency, which is talk about such things, which may be offensive to some people. However, the FCC regarded people's First Amendment rights, that the government should not get involved in curtailing that. They reached a compromise between, the desire to protect people from harmful content versus the desire to protect them from the government censoring their freedom of speech. And the compromise in terms of indecency was to create what they called the safe harbor time, which is from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Broadcasters can broadcast indecent content. In other words, people talking about things, cuss words, basically. Swearing, yeah. And the Pacifica ruling of 1978, which was the George Carlin comedy album, which the seven filthy words was his comedy act, and Pacifica broadcast it. It was on a record, but they broadcast it over the air, and they got fined, and therefore, at the very least, we know that you can't say those 7 words. And you can look at YouTube. There's a lot of videos about it. You can see the actual act. Got you. In the Telecommunications Act, which we've talked about before, as so important about lifting the caps on broadcast ownership, in radio especially, but changing a lot of rules about broadcast ownership. There was also they left it up to the set manufacturers to install what they called the V chip into television, which was a big flop, but it was supposed to give parents the chance to program hours that their kids couldn't watch particular programs. So in addition to safe harbor from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., they were also able to program with the V chip, further restrictions on their kids. So that was a big flop, and research shows that nobody ever uses it. So, yeah. Let's see, nothing else on this one. Nothing on the exam, but just to say, I sometimes hear people claim that in our country we have media censorship, but in fact we don't. You can say stuff, you can even put out obscenity, and you'll be fined or further punished. But there's no kind of censorship office that the government runs that puts a stamp on every script before you can actually go and shoot it the way it was, for instance, in communist Russia or something. In our case, each broadcast outlet, each network has standards and practices, and that's staffed by lawyers, and they basically look over scripts and stuff and see that if they think it'll cross the line, they'll ask for revisions. If they want to be daring, and maybe they'll let it cross the line and see what happens. There's a funny documentary about the making of South Park, I think, called 6 Days to Air or something. I highly recommend it. It's certainly indecent in places, but so there's a very funny scene in there where they're talking about sewing one character's face to the butt of another and things like that, and you can hear the line producer for South Park on the phone with standards and practices with the network, sort of saying, explaining. So there's a scene in which they sew his butt to somebody's face and stuff like that, and you can hear them just kind of going back and forth, and then. I think it's Trey Parker comes on an interview and he says, well, actually they don't tell us not to do a lot of stuff. In a way, the show's been on so long that people just say, oh, that's South Park being South Park.
Nice.
But it's also on cable, remember.
Yeah.
Olive?
Doesn't Saturday Night Live go through a lot of stuff as well when it comes to obscenity or indecency or profanity?
I don't know. I haven't watched it in so long. I don't remember any of that content being so risque. But, because it's broadcast live, the FCC has gone back and forth as to whether to levy fines against stuff that happens live. So up until the kind of early 2000s, they would let live expletives go. On the idea that, no one could anticipate that, so we'll let it go. But then after the wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl, and then also Bono let fly with an F-bomb, like, this is freaking incredible, but he didn't use the word freaking in something at the Grammys. So after that, they changed tact, or TAC or whatever, and they decided, no, we will fine people for these live offenses.
So SNL still gets fined if they.
Do they? Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember a couple of Christmases ago, they had a special guest, Samuel L. Jackson, on this one skit, and he swore, but it got bleeped out, of course. But it still cost them a fine.
Oh,
So because there's like a 10-second gap for them to catch stuff like that. But
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Interesting.
But yeah, they
So-
still get fined.
Yeah. So they did put people on notice that they were going to do that, but for another class, I've read kind of more deeply into this, and it's interesting because there's a lot of pushback from the networks that they took Fox, NBC, ABC, and CBS together took the FCC to the Supreme Court in the mid 2000s precisely to argue that these regulations were hurting their freedom of speech. And the decision, you can't just go to the Supreme Court for a decision. It's always based on appealing some prior offense. And so in the case, the Supreme Court said, okay, we won't allow the FCC to fine you for that one because you didn't adequately tell the broadcasters that they couldn't do that. But going forward, we would like to see, the FCC really make it clear what you can't say, and then we'd still uphold the authority of the FCC to impose those fines. So the Supreme Court said yes to the principle that an FCC should have oversight and be able to fine, but on that particular case that they heard, they said, but in this case, we won't allow you to fine them because you weren't clear enough. So it's basically every time the FCC goes to court about something, a little bit more of their authority gets chopped off, basically. All of this gray area gets better defined, So it's surprising how weak they actually are. And then when it's a Republican appointee, that changes the dynamic too. They're much less into regulating than the Democrats are, would appear.
How about pulling up an episode of South Park?
That would be fun. No. We're gonna pull up Cahoots now, I guess.
I wonder if they're
Maybe
gonna
that's fun.
make an episode in relation to net neutrality.
South Park? They haven't done it already? They're usually so right on the current trend. Yeah, it shows in 6 days to air. The reason they can do, all the other animated shows, they do things months and months in advance. But South Park, because it's digitally animated and pretty crudely animated, they do pull these things together like within a week, just like a regular sitcom, which means they can be super topical. And it looks super stressful as well. This is like on day 5, they're up until 3 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out what are we gonna do and stuff. But they always get it done, including the producer who drives the digital output to the satellite company. Right, that's the end of this documentary. It's like driving over there after they've been through this week of hell, and they're plugging it in to like upload it to Comedy Central for distribution, and then they're back in the office. It's like, oh, they're going to go home for a day, and then they'll all be back and do it again another week. It's insane. It's crazy, but it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Okay, so well, actually, let's. Okay, we'll start out with the Kahoot on this stuff, and no doubt we'll find like 100 things that I didn't mention to you. But this is a good way of keeping. Making sure that we cover the stuff that's on the exam for sure. So let's, this would be the Kahoot for this one. And let's play it this way. Do you guys actually want to compete on this, or we could just like run through it? Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Well, let's get started, and I think people can still join, right? Yeah. Okay. Chapter 13, 11 questions. Are you ready? Some believe the government should regulate media content. Others believe that viewers should. 8. It's true. Okay, everybody got it right, but
So proud of you.
that's good. I'm very glad you got it all right. So that was actually the last slide, which that's a very good reason why we do it this way. But where the heck is it? Swimming against the tide of technology. There was one with a big question mark on it. Where is that? There it is. Are the viewers or the media responsible for the content that comes into the home? So that's at least an issue which is debated. So that's where that one came from here. Some believe the government should regulate media content. Others believe viewers should. So that's the idea that, some people just say, well, it's up to the parents to control what the kids see, which is easier said than done. Okay, yeah, we got that one out there. Good job, folks. Some content not intended for children may be broadcast without penalty during the safe harbor time. So it is true that the safe harbor rule means that indecent content can be broadcast between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And remember, that's not obscene content.
So that's safe and harbor time, though?
That's safe harbor, yeah.
Okay.
10 p.m. to 6 a.m. safe harbor.
Okay.
God knows why they would call it harbor.
I wish they did that with Family Feud.
Oh. Okay, question 3. Pro-social media effects mean positive results like higher academic achievement. True. Okay, that was evenly divided. Well, perhaps the example threw you off. But so pro-social media means media with giving, benefiting kids
right.
in their socialization. It is correct. It is
yes.
true.
Yeah.
So some of the research shows that the kids who watch those NPR shows like Sesame Street when they're little turn out to get better grades when they go into school as well. So there are, and kudos to whoever brought up Sesame Street as the most researched show like that. But it has some media use does get you better grades eventually, but not all, obviously. Obscenity restrictions in broadcasting are rooted in the Miller versus California court decision. True, yes sir, folks. True.
Sweating by the end of it.
Miller v. California. Right there onto that. No, I don't want to move stuff. I want to get over here. Goodness, there it is. Miller v. California. The first of those court cases that defined that. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Which of these is most closely related to Albert Bandura's Bobo doll experiment? So remember the Bobo doll is when they showed kids videos of other kids punching the Bobo doll, and then they let the whole bunch of them loose. All right, woo, okay, most people got that one. So remember that was modeling behavior. The idea that little kids often imitate other kids, and so this actually carried over into seeing other kids behaving in media. There was a positive effect. Well, positive, I mean, there was a noticeable effect that the kids that watched the videos went and punched the Bobo dolls a lot more than the kids that didn't watch the videos. So, now, does that mean that teenagers who watch video games go out and kill? No, it doesn't. So, as an experiment, it showed something, but as to what we could interpret based on that experiment, not so clear. We don't all engage in imitative behavior already. Which of these is most closely related to the belief that media have limited effect? So the answer, number 5, the two-step flow. Remember, this was the research done in the 1950s which showed that media messages have a limited effect when they are promoted by real people, by opinion leaders. And so that was a two-step flow. From the first step was from the media outlet to the opinion leader, and the opinion leader then talked to the rest of their community, and that created quite a positive result. Again, it was noticeable that when something happened that way, media messages were more influential when they were presented by an opinion leader. So that's called the two-step flow. Media to opinion leader to the audience. You get a stronger effect. Okay, cool. Cultivation is an example of what type of media effect? Okay, let's see here. Just about everybody got cognitive. That's good. So cognitive refers to how you think about things. So yeah, definitely. Cultivation, it means that it develops a particular understanding of the world in your mind. Behavioral effects would be they get you to do something, like run out and buy something, and so on and so forth. The cognitive effect is the answer there. All right, question 8. Which theory says that people who view a lot of television view the world as a mean place? All right, maybe we didn't require that many. Cultivation, yeah.
What?
So remember, cultivation theory gives us the mean world syndrome. Right? So, mean world and cultivation connected together. Right? Okay, question 9. The ability of news media to focus our attention and concern on certain issues is known as? Yes, everybody got it. Agenda setting. It talks about how media can focus our attention on certain issues. All right, next up. Which perspective assumes that individuals select media and content with specific purposes? 7 answers in. That's right, everybody got this one right. Uses and gratifications theory. So it's the theory which puts the audience in the driver's seat as far as media goes, which is very popular among people. Tendency to remember messages that have the most meaning for us is most closely associated with selective retention. Exactly, right. So remember, that was another cognitive theory, and the idea was that based on your prior understanding of the world, you would seek out media that confirmed your understanding. You would remember it better. You would even perceive it better. You would be, have a more accurate perception of what it was. So, yes, those are all good. There we go. JP Genius on the top of the podium. And let's take a look at the chapter 12 one. Just before we begin, as far as cheesy music goes, I read an interesting article a while back about a guy who has literally thousands of songs on Spotify. Did you read that one,
No,
John?
I think you told us.
Oh, we told? Okay, all right.
It's happy birthday songs, but for
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
specific names.
All right, thank you. So I've already told you that story, but I always find it really intriguing that you could make a better living producing, just junk that some people might want once in a while, rather than doing great art. It's interesting. So maybe he's also got a gig doing Kahoot background music. So, all right, classic. And let's see. see. Right. So this one is about the movie industry. After the 2007 writer strike, studios bought fewer original scripts and more existing IP. Well, yes, everybody got it. So yeah, that was considered a turning point. The writer's strike scared all the production studios, saying, "Oh my God, we can't be slaves to the writers. Let's make sure we've got, big franchise projects based on other people's stuff, so that we don't have to be held. How could I put it? So we still have more power over those writers. We don't want to pay. The film industry underrepresents women and minorities in executive and creative roles. Oh my gosh, who has faith?
Somebody's very
It's
optimistic.
true, yeah, absolutely. The film industry underrepresents women and minorities in executive and creative roles. Definitely. That's true. Okay, next up. In the 1930s, the motion picture industry began to be regulated by, and there we go. 6 people got it right. The Motion Picture Production Code, the MPPC,
The Hays Code.
also known as the Hays Code. Exactly. Yeah. So it was regulated there. The Hays Code did not explicitly prohibit, so what did it not talk about? Extreme violence. They didn't care so much about that.
Really?
God forbid you should
We're
show a
Americans.
mixed race romance, tell foul language, or avert sexuality. Yeah. So the answer is extreme violence. The Hays Code did not prohibit violence. Okay. And up, question 5. Innovations such as widescreen were introduced in response to poor attendance at movie theaters. True or false? It is true. So Cinerama and other gimmicky effects have often been introduced to try to, get better attendance going. Usually because the audience is being pulled away by other media. All right. In the 1950s, the Hollywood studios became complicit in blacklisting. 7 people got it right. So blacklisting referred to suspected communists. So that was 1950s Cold War paranoia. Everyone was afraid that communists were taking over the communication industries. Okay, the term B movies referred to what? You gonna get knocked off the podium?
Oh, no.
Wait, really?
What up here? The second film of a double feature. Wow, that threw everybody off.
I thought it was
Okay.
films produced.
That definitely threw
That's what I
So,
was.
Everyone.
so films were bundled in double features in the movie theaters, and you had your A film, which was the one that everyone wanted to
big
see,
one.
and your B film was the second film, which was usually like a
Which was
serial.
right in the back of the theater somewhere.
Well, no, it was the second one they would show on the double bill.
Okay.
You have to think of it like a vinyl, right? There's an A side and a B side.
Right,
sense, yeah.
right. Yeah, good
I
point.
just thought it.
That should get you to, yeah.
I thought it was going to be anything with Bruce Campbell in it.
Right. So this came up in the chapter just saying that, like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark was an updating of what was, the B movies of the time, were those serialized movies which were made pretty cheaply, and they were kind of adventure movies with cliffhangers and stuff, versus the A-list films were films that were, like big budget epics with movie stars and stuff. So when Lucas, made a hit with Raiders of the Lost Ark and that type of thing in the 80s, people were surprised because those were like regarded as just, filler back in the day when they were B movies. Yeah,
Would they show the main movie first?
yeah,
So people would just stick around for the second one?
if they wanted, yeah.
It's good stuff.
The B movie,
Still like
the
it.
B side. All right, here we go. What was Hollywood's best year of the golden era? Oh my God. It's holding out on us. It was 1939.
I thought there was-
1939 was the year those movies came
That's the
out.
color of my eyes.
Quite amazing. Just a coincidence. Choose.
The talkie picture.
The first talkie motion picture was, yay, skip. So it was The Jazz Singer. It was the first talkie motion picture. All right, what's up next? In contemporary Hollywood, branding tends to be about. Oh, yeah. Wow, everybody did great. Yes, so the tendency is towards creating franchises. All right, let's see what's up.
You didn't watch that side.
Whoa, the podium.
You crushed it. Stocks.
All right, excellent, excellent. Yeah, okay. So we looked at what each department in a radio or television station does. We looked at engineering, promotion, programming, channel management. So we talked about the type of things that each of those departments did. And then there's a little bit about hardware also, like what kind of devices you find in a television studio. So the cameras are on pedestals, these big motorized tripods basically, but they drive around controlled by robots. And then the video switcher, that's the device that will combine video signals. So you go from the weather person to the anchor person to the remote reporter. So that's a video switcher does that, switches signals. We talked a little bit about the cable delivery system. So the cable companies actually call these trunk lines, which are the big high capacity, high bandwidth cables that carry the signal from the cable company out to the neighborhoods. And then those branch out into individual connections that Comcast connects up to your house. And then we talked about digital delivery, some of the advantages. Okay, so with your Xfinity service or whatever, as we saw early in the class, we talked about more and more streaming services being created. So the great thing about them, they provide access to archived shows going way back even. The industry likes them because since you're streaming them, it's not like you can buy a digital file that you can then pirate and distribute to your friends, although we know that happens, but it's more challenging to do in a streaming situation. And then it's great for the audience because the audience can consume a program when they want, on demand. You missed it when it was broadcast, you can go right away to Hulu and you can see it then, or you can skip the broadcast and just get it on Hulu. So, there's those advantages to digital delivery. But digital production in TV stations has led to layoffs. We saw that in radio, where clustering everybody together can get rid of some people who had duplicate functions, but also even in news. When I was working in news, you'd have a videographer, you'd have an audio person, you'd have, the reporter, and you may even have a field producer along for the ride. That would be 4 people very often on network interviews anyway. And now very often these things are done by one person, with a backpack, and they set up their own camera. Even to do their talking to the camera, their stand-ups and stuff, they'll shoot them themselves. So this has led to a lot of layoffs at the local station level. Camera operators too. If the cameras are driving around on robotically controlled pedestals, you don't need all those camera operators that you used to. So it's been a big change. All right, so that was a quick review, and I'm sure I didn't catch every one of those things, but okay, let's play this one. All right, are you ready? We're ready. In the 1920s, some local stations recorded their audio programs as electrical transcription. Yes, it's true. Yes, they did. They basically would cut lacquer recordings of their radio shows. That's the only way they could do it. Pretty crazy. There was no tape back in that time. Newsrooms using new technologies typically increase the size of their field production crews. 5, false. It's false. Remember we said that most of the people that I used to work with would have been laid off in the current environment. Everyone would do these like
Everybody's like, what
one person. Everyone's a single, they call it backpack journalist. Okay, studio cameras are mounted on what?
Oh,
Jeez, I know. It's true. Look how I misled everybody. Gaffers.
Last time too.
Gaffers. It'd be great to get a job as a gaffer and they'll strap a camera on your back. And point that way. So it's pedestals. The answer is pedestals. Put that camera up on a pedestal.
Go to chiropractor.
Okay, this computerized device combines and processes signals from multiple video sources. All right, there it is. Oh, switcher. It's the switcher. Combines signals from, let's say, the camera on the anchor person, the camera on the weather person, the camera on the reporter. So that's called a switcher. It switches video inputs. Question 5. Radio promotions are designed to generate controversy so people will talk about the station.
Sounds pretty bad for business.
It's false. It's bad for business. So remember that the department in the radio or television station that buys advertising on other media to promote your own station, that's the promotions department. So they typically wouldn't want people to get all upset about what they're doing. They would just want to attract people to watch, your television station. So, like for instance, that would be you buy an advertisement on a bus. Tune in to KCSS or whatever. We have the best morning crew. So that's what the promotions department does. They promote the station through other media. So they wouldn't want to cause controversy. Okay, next up. The one advantage that terrestrial radio continues to have over satellite and streaming is localism. Oh, interesting. Yeah, 7, it's true. So terrestrial radio can still, appeal to local audiences because it's part of the local community. Okay, so who's in charge? So this is in a station. Who's in charge of hiring, payroll, contracts, and making sure facilities are all, paying the rent and stuff like that? All right, woo, consensus. I love it. Make sure that one's on the exam. General management. Yes, so it's general management who takes care of those things, not the engineering department, for sure. Which of the following works most closely with the music director? So, yeah, not bad. 6, yes, it's the program director. So the programming department decides what goes on the air when. Television or radio, same things. Programming. So in this case, the music director would work with the programming director because they're deciding what goes out over the air and when. Which songs are we going to play? Next up, the engineering department of a local station is also responsible for FCC technical compliance. Yeah, there we go. It is true, okay? So the FCC license for a radio or television station dictates all kinds of technical stuff. It's not just about content. It's also, how powerful your transmitter is and where it's directed will determine who can get your signal. And, on the basis of the FCC wanting to make sure that, your signal doesn't drown out somebody else in another community or something like that, you can't just broadcast as powerfully as you want on the, frequency that they gave you. You'll have to also make sure it's just enough to reach the people that you're licensed to reach and not more, So that's the engineer's job, to make sure that all of those technical considerations are met. Otherwise, you get a huge fine. They're not nice about that at all. The system for distributing cable TV to subscribers resembles a tree with trunk and branches.
I thought you said Trump.
All right, here we go. Yes. Oh, 8. 8 people got it right. That's excellent. Nice. Now you know how cable systems are designed. The type of wires used by cable systems do not lose strength when traveling long distances. Right, 6. Yes, 6 people got it. Do not lose strength. Okay, this is so, yes. That assertion that they do not lose strength is false because they do lose strength over distance, which is why even when they advertise like super hot speeds, then when you actually get it, if you live far from the
Actual station. Yeah.
place where, remember you got the trunk, which is super high speed, and then the branches, which go out to your house. Well, if you're a long way off on those branches, then you'll get a slower internet connection. That's why optical is better. You don't lose quite so much signal as you go over
Looks like a man
distance. So, buying time on other media to publicize a broadcast station involves which department? So which department buys?
It's either promotions or
Come on, Skip. Oh my gosh. What are you folks thinking?
It is.
Sales? No, it's promotions.
Sales is
Promotions, all right? So promotions department wants to promote the station, right? And so they're going to buy time on other media in order to promote the station. It's the idea is like, if they don't listen to you, you can't promote yourself on your own station. So you've got to put advertisements on either other stations or on buses or billboards
There
or
won't be
something.
any sales.
Right? There won't be any sales. Yeah, that's right. The salespeople just sell airtime. So question 13. TV programming departments are primarily concerned with, so boom. Oh, we practically did. I underestimated you. Forgive me. Program acquisition and scheduling. That's what programming does. So they choose the programs, they buy them often, and they'll schedule them. Yeah. So we talked about radio. Some of your choices would be what songs are you going to play on your station, and if we're talking about TV, it's kind of like, okay, what syndicated shows are you going to put on when you're not receiving network content? So programming would be concerned with that. All right. 14, in larger markets, the sales manager position may be divided into local sales manager and, right, we did pretty well. So yes, they would be divided into local sales manager and regional or national sales managers in the larger markets. So what that would just mean is there would be, in a large market, there'd be so much demand for your advertising services. You'd have a bunch of people just taking care of the local stuff. But then also you would have calls coming in for national campaigns and stuff because you're in such a big market that they would want to also advertise with you that way. So very different type of job in sales. You just basically answer the phone and you take orders from distant places versus the local sales managers are the ones who are like pounding the pavement, making sales in the local community. All right. That's it for that one. Ralph Wiggum pulls it off. All right, good for you, Ralph. All right, so we will continue this next class where we have a few more techniques.
Eating crayons in those ranges, right?
Good job.
Those colors.